Violence in the media. You heard it debated in last fall's elections. You also have heard it over a period of years, the concern about how much violence there is on TV and other media. Well, here in Central Texas, we have some folks who have addressed this issue. We're going to be talking to them today on Austin Faith Dialogue, so please join us.
Austin Faith Dialogue, at the crossroads of religion and life. A series highlighting the cultural and social interactions between the worshiping and religious communities in and around the capital city. Austin Faith Dialogue is brought to you by the Austin Metropolitan Ministries in cooperation with KXAN. Join us now in Austin Faith Dialogue.
Hello, I'm Richard Thompson in behalf of Austin Area Interreligious Ministries, bidding you welcome to this edition of the show. We have a topic today that is really a hot one around the country and has been for some time, and that is the issue of violence in the media. You can tell that it's been a concern because Congress, not too many years ago, passed a law that required television sets and producers to have the V-chip so that parents could control what would be coming into any given household. We also find that it was hotly debated in last fall's presidential election. But today we're going to be talking with a couple of folks who have been going beyond just fretting about this to what we can do about it, particularly within the religious community. We have with us two Methodists, as it turns out. Martha Rogers, who is the chair of the Church and Society Committee for the Southwest United Methodist Conference. And I think that one of these moments I'll get this all straight out. So, give it to us.
The Southwest Texas Conference of the United Methodist Church.
That's it. Thank you so much. Wanda Holcomb, also with that same organization.
Yes.
Serving as a staff person as the for the peace and justice side of that work. But welcome to you both.
Thank you for having us.
And would like to also say that you've been, I know, working together over the last year to bring to the public's attention these productions, this video production of the Center for Media Literacy in Los Angeles that has this series of materials on challenging violence in the media, beyond blame. Tell us about that, Martha, and how you've been using that.
I first got interested in this when I went to a school for the United Methodist Women. And I learned about the Center for Media Literacy and about the curriculum called Beyond Blame,
Right.
Challenging Violence in the Media.
Right.
And the Methodist Church had helped fund the development of that material. So I went from there a few years later, became a member of this board of Church Society. And at the same time, these all of these incidents, like the Columbine shooting,
Right.
had taken place, and that kind of galvanized us to action, and it made it a really prime time to bring it to people's attention. So my board decided to purchase sets of the curriculum, put it in our resource center, so that our churches can check it out at no charge.
I wonder how many of these workshops or presentations have you done on this subject of violence in the media?
We've done probably about 15 in a variety from, because our conference covers from Austin to McAllen to Victoria to El Paso in that area. So we've covered churches of various things, Sunday schools to family nights. We've done workshops with preschool staff people. We call that workshop From Bambi to Pokemon. And to try to work with those staff. We've worked also in Del Rio with a school people, and they used it in a vacation Bible school and training. We do a lot of people training it. Here in Austin, we were in Terrytown, and at a family night, we did the introduction to the family while others in that congregation did a part for the children.
Okay. Well, I think for folks looking in and are interested in just exactly the kinds of things you've been showing, let's look at one of the first of these segments that's in Beyond Blame.
Does TV violence make us violent? It's a crucial question in the ongoing debate, especially when it concerns children. Experts claim the average American child will see 8,000 murders and 100,000 acts of violence on television before they finish elementary school. A University of Pennsylvania survey of both cable and network schedules reports that violence appears in 9 out of 10 children's programs at a rate of 18 times per hour. The same study says that compares with 6 violent acts per hour in prime time.
Who likes to watch TV in here?
At this elementary school in Aurora, Illinois, these children are part of a program that encourages them to talk about what they see on TV. The program's designers say it's an attempt to prevent violence and reduce a child's aggressive behavior as the result of watching television.
And I can't watch violent stuff like kill and rated R stuff like shooting stuff because it gives me nightmares.
Okay, so what we have there is just a little indication of the extent that this is a problem. And something of the causes and effects of that. How do you take that, for instance, that video clip that we've just seen and use that with folks?
We talk about the causes of media violence and the increase over time. And in the 40 years that TV programming has existed, we've gone from the Three Stooges banging each other over the head up to gunning down groups with machine guns. It has gotten, the numbers of violent incidents have increased, and the amount, the kinds, the graphicness of it has increased. And one of the reasons for that is because we get desensitized. The more we see, the more we need to to get excitement out of it.
So this has to do with causes. Now, Wanda, in terms of the effects, Bill Curtis in this little segment here was saying, well, now how much does this carry over in the behavior of young folks? Do you speak to that in your workshops?
Yes, we do. And when we did this workshop about From Bambi to Pokemon, one of the things that we'd found that even with the youngest child that is experiencing all this violence, you have examples like when the young guy came and brought his, the gun and shot the kid in the first grade. They don't understand the consequences of it. They begin to see, they don't know the difference between reality and what it is.
Yeah, okay.
And so that's part of what we try to bring in the workshop, as well as giving a context, helping the children understand a context, because they can't always get away from that.
All right. Let's take another look at another segment here, and as we go into this, we may see some things that are rather graphic.
I'm desensitized to it, especially in the Saturday morning programs, where they see these characters over and over again, blowing up and then coming back together again, and all done in a very humorous vein. So they get to think, well, it's really not permanent what you do, and these are now young kids. I'm talking about 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds who are watching this over and over again, building up these kinds of attitudes.
As an adult, you may enjoy how Dirty Harry cleans up the town, or you may not. That's your choice. But how do you feel when children see violence on television? And how do they feel?
I think parents have to learn to treat TV with TLC, tender loving care. And the T is for talk about TV with your kids, and the L is for look at it with them when you can, or at least sometimes, so you know what they're looking at. And the C is for choose for them when they're little and with them as they grow up.
Yes, that segment there, the TLC of watching television, that we'll be coming in the second half to more of what we do, what we can do as parents and within church and with the community otherwise. But as you watched other parts of this, did this give you the sense that you were saying things have gotten more violent on the tube as time has gone along? And you saw a little bit of that there.
It has. Part of that is because of the global market. Some of this is produced to be exported. And
violence travels.
It does.
In a way humor doesn't, for instance.
And it translates well.
Yeah, okay.
The script is not too hard to subtitle.
Right. And I think the one that really perhaps brings us out, Wanda, I'd like to have you be ready to comment on this after we look at this next segment. Okay. Viewers do need to be aware that this is this is graphic, but this is the way it is today. So let's take a look at that.
Now, there may have been more bloodthirsty eras in the history of humankind, although I'm not sure about that. I'm not even sure how one would find out. But I can tell you that there has never been the amount of violent imagery that permeates every home today that we have at the present time. This is historically totally unprecedented. We are awash with a tide of violent representations such as the world has never known. And I think the consequences are very troubling.
Well, kind of bloody, but not that unusual.
Unusual.
Now,
That's right.
Wanda, everybody's looking at this, the different ages, and what have you had people tell you in these conferences that you've done about the effects this is having with their children or young people?
Well, part of the experiences that families have been having is, again, the tension that they find with other children. One example I use is my grandson who's in the first grade. His mother and I do not promote Pokemon. On the playground, he's ostracized because he doesn't play with Pokemon. And then you find the aggression in the classroom that is difficult for parents when their kids come home, whether or not in the play that they have in the playground. And as the teenagers then began to been exposed to this, because it's hard when that kind of stuff is shown on TV for the kids not to see it sometime or another. When I was growing up, I didn't see it that much. Now, when everybody, when it's used as a babysitter or it's used as all different kinds of ways, the violence really becomes more effective in terms of the everyday life that the children experience.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we have heard about, television is used as a babysitter. And so you don't have adults there with them to either monitor what they're seeing. And you wonder about the V-chip as far as an effectiveness tool to help parents in this regard. Have you heard much about that being used?
I've heard I heard a report that it's not being used as much as it could be.
Yeah.
But parents, that is a tool that parents can use, and we hope they will.
I've heard of some families that the parents can't figure out how to use it, so they call their kids in to help them get the V-chip online. Well, we'll come back to what we do about this in just a moment. Stay with us here on Austin Faith Dialogue as we consider violence in the media. Welcome back to Austin Faith Dialogue, where today our subject is violence in the media. We're privileged to have with us a couple of folks who have been leading in some media education work using materials from the Center for Media Literacy in Los Angeles. These are two Methodists, and I think Martha Rogers in the first half, I introduced you as being the Peace and Justice Committee Chair, Board Chair of the
Society.
Board of Church and Society. All right.
Of the Southwest Texas Conference.
Southwest Texas Conference of the United Methodist Church.
You got it.
Finally got it in sequence there. Wanda, and you're Wanda Holcomb is the church, the educator for Peace and
with Justice educator, right?
Yes. You were a missionary for a
Yes,
while.
Yes, I was. That's right.
In Asia?
Yes.
You come back to this country. Was it a culture shock to see what was on television?
Yes, but also, as Martha said earlier, it's being exported to around the world. When we first started living in Asia in the 70s, it was you would not see any of this. And now it's everywhere. And on the buses, it's really tragic to see the export of what we've done around the world with our media. And again, it's because we said it transports well. You don't have to know the language. And it's a part of what we want to think about also when we're talking about our nation. You know, the Pediatric Association came out this summer saying after a 20-year study that they can document that watching various types of media does create violent, aggressive behavior. And I think when you talk to parents, they say, well, I want my children to be aggressive. And yes, we do want our children to be aggressive, but not to the point where it's harmful to the other person.
I've heard it said the distinction is made between being aggressive and being assertive. You want people to take up for themselves, but not to be hostile about it.
Right.
Martha, I think that when we get around to what we can do about it, we start at the home.
Right.
Salvation begins in the home, sort of thing. And there's a little piece here that I think maybe you and I can come back to.
Okay.
This is a very popular one among media education folks in the Center for Media Literacy Materials. So let's take a look at that.
If your best friend leaves home, it may be because you're watching too much television. Learn to watch television sensibly.
You said that's one of your more popular segments.
Yes, we almost always use that one in our workshops.
You know, I've been party to that too, and people are laughing so hard they missed the punchline at the end, which is if you're watching television, you may lose your best friend. But how much is watching too much?
Well, they say that the average household's TV the TV is on 7 hours a day. That's the average. And on the lower socioeconomic homes, that it is on more like 11 hours a day. And our children are spending more time looking at some kind of screen. Now, we're talking about not only television, but also video games, the internet, movies, and music. And our children are really learning about their world, about our culture, through those. They spend a lot more time with those than they do with their parents or their teachers or their grandparents.
Okay. I think as people watch this, they might want to know how to get a hold of either one of you about bringing you into their church or their group. And I know the Center for Media Literacy produces these materials for schools, probably even more than for churches.
Yes.
But is used in the religious community. Wanda, I think we have a email address for that Center for Media Literacy, as well as maybe one for you. And we'll see if we can, I think it's a website that you're operating out of this conference office in San Antonio?
In San Antonio, right.
I see, but people can still call you there.
Yes, and that's the number we've given at one point, and that's in where we have four sets of these where people can use. But one of the things I think it's helpful to know about this material, that it is age distinctive, and that like some of the video we saw earlier, you would not use with children.
Right, right.
That there is a portion for the adults and there's a portion for each age level. And that's why when we were doing workshops, we do one part with the adults and somebody else we do something with children.
I see.
And so that, therefore, it can be used in all ages throughout a church or a school or a community center of that type.
I notice they are showing some of these web addresses that folks can communicate with, and the Center for Media Literacy in Los Angeles has its own way that people can go directly there for these materials.
Right. And we also, in our workshops, use materials from FAVAN, the Families Against Violence.
Okay.
I think you had a website up there for them too.
Right.
Using the Family Pledge of Nonviolence, and they have an excellent booklet that goes with it, and how to implement it in churches or other organizations.
Okay. We have one other video clip here that I think we'll look at just to give us a little bit of a concluding focus we can do both individually and corporately.
But media literacy is more than learning how to analyze messages, it's learning how to create them as well. At Cambridge Ringen Latin High School, students are doing just that.
How long is this thing going to be anyway? It's 30 seconds. I think making a media message is a good way of expressing ideas, because you can really put in how you feel about how it should be shown.
Look at my mom run away. Yeah, that's fact.
Times when I feel in history class or something wasn't right, then I get the camera and I have free time to go out and ask the kids around the school what they think about it and get it all on tape. Then come back and view it in class, and that way I get to understand it too. I get to understand how they feel, and I know how I feel.
You just hold it like over your shoulder?
Because a lot of people in fantasy land, they don't know what really takes place behind the scenes and what's really going on. So I think if everyone had a chance to critically analyze media and how to break it down and things like that, because that way you're not fooled by television.
Right there. Yeah, because you walk by them and you're looking at them.
For them to be able to not only shape the world through their own lens, a video lens or a camera, that they can shape what they see on TV because they know what goes behind it, they know what goes into it, they know what the agenda is, and that's pretty powerful for them.
Media education gives students the skills they need to fully participate in our culture.
Some people would say media education is radical. It depends, of course, on what you mean by radical. If you believe that education is not only about making a living, but about making a life and making an intelligent life, then media literacy is radical in the best, most constructive sense of the word.
Okay, Martha, where you have there are young people making videos, doing media, so as to understand how they can almost demythologize it as they're getting behind the scene and all of that.
Right, that's the best way to understand it, is to make it yourself. Then you can understand the viewpoint of the producer, you can understand the goal of the producer and how things are presented for a particular audience. And they can see how things are developed and what you can show. You can selectively show some different things for it, so it'll say what you want it to say.
Yeah, and even the news is always a matter of selection.
Yes.
It's not something
Right.
objective out there. People are making decisions about what is, and there's the old saying that if it bleeds, it leads.
Yes, they've said that.
And news, you begin to analyze how are news programs just biasing people about perceiving that the world is so violent when in fact the crime rate has been going down. By the way, we have here the information about what's coming up in June, a national conference here in Austin, and a number of the people can call about that. Tell us about that conference.
This is a conference, I think it's the fourth one they have had. They have chosen to do it in Austin because Texas leads in the moved to make media literacy part of the language arts program in public schools. There's a segment now called Viewing and Presenting to go along with reading and writing and listening and hearing. So that's why they're having it here. And this conference particularly provides a lot of opportunities for teachers to see how they can incorporate it into their curriculum.
I see. So that it's the assumption is that instead of just reading words, you read images. You learn to
Critical
analyze because we are saturated with images. And Wanda, is in terms of your media literacy work with in the churches, you see that that's what you're doing, is helping them learn to read what they watch?
Yes, and one of the things that we've talked about now is that TV has become the storyteller, as before in the past where, you know, the Bible stories or things like that were prominent stories for them. Now when you talk with children, you find that the TV is more, those kind of characters are the ones that they talk about and no more. And so one of the things that we have found is being aware, number one, of what the situation is, like what we were talking about. But the other one then is acting in your own family, where you sit down with children and talk about what they see, as well as looking at the newspaper so they can have a context for what is from your family's perspective on what they are experiencing. We've been in workshops where people said, I didn't know that was violent, and we said, do you ever sit down and watch some of the things with your children? Well, no, I'm too busy, or I've got this. So one of the things that we really encourage in terms of action is watching some of the things that the children watch. If your teenagers go to a movie, whether you've seen it or not, talk with them about it, what they experienced, what was going on, how did they relate to it, what was the reality that they thought we experienced, and how does that then relate to your faith or whatever.
And that relates to what we were seeing earlier with Peggy Charon from the Action Children's Television Action Group, and that it was at TLC. Talk to your young people, look at the shows with them, and see is to choose for them when they're little and with them as they grow older. Concluding remarks. What's going to happen at this conference in June, just if people are interested in attending that?
Especially people might be interested in the pre-conference activity, which will be on Saturday, and there will be activities there particularly for parents and for people in the faith community with things that will be more pertinent.
Where will that be in Austin? What
it's
location?
At the Doubletree Hotel on I-35 near 290.
June the
23rd through the 26th.
Okay. Well, even though it seems a long way off, it'll be here before we know it. And you know what's here before we know it? The end of this show. We're so glad you were here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Martha Rogers and Wanda Holcomb. Thank you, folks, for looking at this edition of Austin Faith Dialogue as we've looked at violence on TV and what we can do about it. Join us next week, and I'm Richard Thompson bidding you peace.